Hey guys, I want to take some time to kind of update everyone on where I'm at with trading. So we started this journey in, I think it was July of 25. Much of the first couple months was me just really trying to figure out as much as I could about trading, the markets, what different strategies there are. I learned a bit about futures, options, ICT. I wasn't disfamiliar with these things, but I need to get up to speed more. I spent a lot of time, trying to understand, different strategies and what would work for me. And swing trades, no, like I'd been through that. I can't sleep at night. So a lot of it for me was, coming down to, okay, I want to do intraday trading and, just figuring out, okay, should I trade the monthlies, trade the weeklies, like risk size, how do I size things, consistently? What contracts do I want to take? How many, all these things, ultimate, and on top of trying to figure out what is a strategy that I want to follow. And so coming into 26, I had narrowed that down to, I really only want to trade kind of weekly options on S&P 500, NASDAQ, and the large cap tech stocks that have very tight spreads and a lot of volume, and the price action's really smooth on those. It's not choppy, and it also gave me a limited amount of kind of tickers to follow. That way I'm not, chasing a bunch of different tickers here and there. And ultimately kind of settled on the break and retest strategy, which then I started to, it took some time to be able to identify the setups when they were actually happening, what a clean one looks like, what a kind of iffy one looks like. And then just also trading off of key levels that I mark out, based on, support resistance, previous levels. And, early in the year, there was a lot of, not waiting for candles to close, getting wicked out of this, not knowing if a setup was legitimate, taking one contract and then not knowing, how do I scale out? Well, I can't, there's only one, so maybe I need to take more, but then how much, risk is that? And just managing, kind of going through back and forth with a lot of these logistic things. And then, I like opportunistically took a swing trade and messed up on it and, sold it really quick for a pretty sizable loss when I told myself I wasn't going to do swing trades. And, then other times it would be like, oh, I'm going to trade one other ticker because it's got a good setup, and then lose on that and then realize, no, I just got to stick to the tickers that I say, the break and retest strategy. And so there were a few mistakes like that over the first couple months that were decently costly, or being kind of narrowly focused on an idea and not just taking the loss and walking away. There were a lot of things that I've learned a lot of about the psychology, a lot of mental. So into January and February, that was a lot of that, kind of just honing the repetition. What's my pre-market prep look like? Just getting and getting used to that. And then March was very choppy in the market. We were consolidating kind of in this range, and then we had the war, which started to kind of push us to the downside. But a lot of the setups, there was not a lot of continuation, so you got in this very like one-to-one risk reward kind of setup. And I got used to that. I was very protective. I was very, cautious within that range, and ended up being kind of break even that month, but was down in January and February. Break even kind of in that month. And coming into April, things started to improve. We started trending higher, but I was still stuck in that one-to-one risk reward and didn't adapt quick enough to realizing the opportunities. There was continuation, and that kind of helped me see that one of the reasons that I'm not super profitable yet is because I don't have the ability to hold trades long. I do, and I'll scale out too quickly. I have gotten in the habit of, selling at least a portion of my position up 30% to kind of give me some protection since we're trading 0 and 1 day contracts typically now. Halfway through the first quarter, all those tech stocks that I trade came out with, Monday, Wednesday, Friday expiration now. So I pretty much just trade the zeros. And I've worked my way up to taking pretty much consistently $500 positions. That way I have enough contracts that I can scale out, and it's also a decent amount of risk relative to my total portfolio. And although I wouldn't say that I'm in any capacity ready to size up anymore from here, because I know that I don't feel like I'm profitable yet. And there's a lot of mistakes that I make that I know aren't, telling me I should size up, and I really need to prove to myself that I can be consistent before I do that. And so a couple of the things that I've struggled with in April, there was a week in April where everything was kind of running. I had a lot of ideas, a lot of setups that I was looking for on the higher time frames, a lot of things, and I hesitated. I couldn't take the trades when they were there. I'm overthinking. I'm afraid of losing money. I get in a trade, and it works for a second, and then I sell it, and then it ends and it works out great, and I felt this pressure of like, I need to make the losses back from January and February, and I'm just missing all these opportunities. And so then I'm chasing bad trades and losing on those and being frustrated. And so it was very emotional. There was a week where, it took me the entire week to kind of realize, wow, you're just not in the right place and we need to reset. And honestly, after those losing streaks, that's kind of when my mental is the best. When I take a step back, I don't force things. I'm very patient. I let the market come to me. I'm not just slapping longs on things that look strong, like very strategically picking and choosing. And I think that is where I need to kind of be all the time in order to be successful, because it seems like, and then I'll claw myself back, because I've been very much like, down 1,000, up to, break even, down 600, up to break even, down to 1,200, up to, down 500, and then back to, down 1,400. And that's kind of the case that happened here too at the end of April. So I worked myself all the way out of that drawdown from just being very patient, looking for easy money trades, getting back to my setups. And I think just getting a little, I wouldn't call it overconfidence, but I think the trades ended up coming out that way, where it's like, maybe there wasn't overconfidence. There wasn't the level of skepticism that I had before that I needed to kind of keep me in the right mindset. And I think that a lot of it too is with not a high winning percentage, my losses are definitely bigger than my wins. So coupling not taking the best trades and having my losses being bigger than my winners because I can't hold winners well, those two things are kind of the biggest issues that I'm having. And then kind of on the tail end of that is when I'll have these very sporadic kind of one-off emotional issues, where like the other day I kind of lost a trade on Tesla, which was a super aggressive trade early on, and then I immediately like just jumped in this long Microsoft, which was a 5-minute range setup, but it was right up against resistance and I didn't even realize it, and I just took it, and then it almost immediately got stopped out, and then I just feel like an idiot. And then that was after having a really solid week, trading solid all week. That was on a Friday and pretty much blew the whole week right there. Today, or this week coming in, things that I have been happy with is that I'm not as afraid. I'm like, what's the worst? Okay, I lose $1,000. I'll make it back. Like, I'm not afraid of the losses as much anymore. I'm more frustrated when I make discipline mistakes and when I'm not realizing things that I should realize. I should realize that, hey, that trade was coming up against resistance. You shouldn't have taken that. That's a low probability trade. I'm not having any issues with sizing. I'm taking the same sizing, so I'm not over leveraging, over risking. I'm I'm trying to take as high quality trades as I can. And so when there's just oversight and not recognizing things like that, just tells me I don't have all the experience that I need to really be where I want to be. And so I just know I got to keep stepping up to the plate, keep trying to, keep losses minimal. And coming into this week, so that was last week, coming into this week, again, I had those losses on Friday. Coming into this week, I'm looking at Tesla, trading Tesla. It kind of was trending, so you don't want to trade it when it's choppy, but it was kind of trending. It was one that several people were looking for, kind of, and I took a 5-minute range setup on it that didn't work out, and I was okay with that loss. Now, I waited for confirmation, so my entry wasn't the best. So then once it finally broke, it was a pretty sizable kind of loss. But nonetheless, I was okay and happy with that trade. Although just because it was a good setup doesn't mean that it was a higher probability setup or low risk, because it wasn't over previous day high. I should have won it over previous day high. And so then the next day, I'm narrowly focused on it again. There's the setup again, and it's not as clean, but it's the same setup, and it's over previous day high, so it should work. But then it was right up against resistance, where I probably should have taken it off of a previous level rather than that 5-minute range setup, which is just kind of a typical pattern that you see. So the ignorance to not see that, was what cost me there. It cost me about the same amount, and I re-entered on the same thesis, but it just didn't get continuation. Or no, that was the day prior, was when I re-entered again, just no continuation. And I had to have a tighter stop on that one. But the second day, just trading it right up into resistance, just looking, so narrowly minded, not really being skeptical. And then after those 2 days, I considered, hey, let me just paper trade, let me just watch, because clearly it's not a risk management thing. It's not a emotional thing. It's I'm taking bad trades. And so coming into today, I was very cautious. I even sized down if I was going to take something, which then, is going to, in my mind, is going to take even longer to make back all the losses. But I need to get back to just trying to trade the levels, be very cautious of like, why is this trade not going to work out? And then just managing my positions. I'm getting much better at managing the positions, knowing exactly when I'm supposed to be out, not getting wicked out, waiting for candles to close. My sizing is okay, my risk is okay. I'm just not, having a positive P&L because of my losers are out bigger than my winners, and my winners I'm not holding long enough. And when I'm trading Tesla, it's very hard to manage risk on those because the candles are so big. But all in all, I'm just continuing to go along the process. I think every time I step up to the plate, I do think I'm learning. I was happy I didn't make any of the same mistakes today, even though I kind of took an overextended move on a long today, which it ended up working out, but I would say that it was a bad trade. So just trying to refine things around the edges. I don't think there's going to be just one thing that clicks. I think it's going to be just, I'm going to have to continue to get the experience, continue to keep my discipline and emotions in the right place, continue to just practice the things that I've been doing and trying to get a little better around the edges, because I'm not just slapping crap. I'm not just, YOLOing, or just like, I really do have a disciplined process, and I'm putting risk on relatively every single day, and kind of in this break even up and down, place. And so I'm really hoping, I can just really honestly be break even for the end of the year, and get a ton of experience and build on it over the years, and get to a place where it can be a significant driver of returns and profit for me. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I've debated many times, hey, should I trade other tickers that have better setups, because sometimes the higher time frames aren't showing good setups, and I've come to just not right now. I've come to, I could do some swing trades because I definitely know how to read those charts, and it's just like just not right now. So I'm really narrowly focused on the kind of the strategy that I have, the stuff that I have, which I like that. and I just need to get better at picking and choosing my spots, and definitely holding trades longer, all these things. And so that's where I'm kind of at. Emotionally, it's been really tough. I want to give up. I want to, and when I have a couple good trades, I'm like, this is the easiest thing I've ever done. Like, I'm going to make so much money. And I just know it's a marathon, not a sprint. Similar to bodybuilding. It's, you got to do these things, over and over and over again, and build repetition and habits. And it's hard to not, like, I don't think I'm seeing the progress because the P&L isn't showing it, but I genuinely believe that, like, I'm learning. I'm not, I'm journaling my trades, I'm doing these, and I'm trying to get better. I spend a lot of time working on how to get better mentally and with my setups. So, that's kind of where we're at. And I'm gonna do another update, maybe in a few months or whatever. But it's just really been a lot of grinding, head down, doing the work, and trying to just improve my trading. So hopefully we look back on these videos and laugh in a couple years, and just trust that our work is gonna be rewarded. And I'm still waiting to have kind of even like a big trade. I think I've my losses have definitely, I've had a couple $100 loss. I haven't had a couple $100 win in a while. And so sometimes I doubt myself. I'm like, is something broken? Am I not doing something right? I know that I am. I think I've identified what those are, but so I'm just trying to be patient and wait for my time to come. I genuinely know it's very hard to sit here, trade 0-day options, put risk on every single day, and not just completely lose your ass. So the fact that I'm not doing that on a daily basis, like, I do know that I'm, like, not terrible, but there's some things that are definitely going to be needed if I want to see that inflection in the P&L, and I'm here for that long term.